regarding pre and post testing for wells, we do actually look at that issue, and one of the things that we would require and have required in the past is if there is damage to a well, they need to either repair the well, redo the well, or provide alternate means to get people water. So I would definitely encourage you that if there is damage due to construction from any previous pipeline or from previous construction of the compressor stations, contact FERC, contact me, and I can get you in touch with people who can look at that issue and potentially resolve that for you. So we do not just walk away once a pipeline is built. We actually maintain the environmental review, environmental controls during the life of the pipeline. So we look at those issues and we want to make sure at any time any environmental issues crop up during it, even if it's erosion or anything like that, we will go back and tell the company they have to go back and fix that issue. We have another question over here.
I'd like to respond to your comments and to your question about well testing. When the Tennessee gas pipeline went through Albany County, specifically town of New Scotland, was 30 years ago, 40 years ago? Many of the water wells were disrupted and complaints were made and people were ignored. And I know of council people who had their water wells disrupted to the point where they had to replace their submersible pump once, twice, 3 times, and they had to bear the cost. There was absolutely no help. Albany County Legislature recently passed a county law stating that if this pipeline comes through and there's any blasting, all water wells and homeowners within a 1-mile radius of the pipeline must receive notification that the blasting is going to occur and must have water well testing done before and after. Kind of sounds somewhat good, but I'm disappointed that the county didn't come out with a resolution in opposition to the pipeline and in support of sustainable renewable energy. So that's all I can tell you at this point. You can find that local law online. Just go to Albany County Legislature and call them if you can't find it.
It wasn't necessarily a question, but I can add a little bit to some of the issues regarding blasting is we do require typically blasting plans when we know that there will be blasting. Part of that will be not just noise and vibration issues that we will look at, but we'll look at any potential impacts from damaged aquifers to wells, to houses, to structures, those sort of issues. So I would encourage that, I hope that the county will have put that specific resolution or that law, they would have informed us, but we will look into that and make sure that we can address the county's concerns in the document. That's what I can add to that particular issue. Any other questions? Sir, you can come up.
Yeah, I guess I'll ask the question. I mean, is there a process within FERC or within the Energy Department to internally address for reform or redress the issues that I was talking about? Does anything, if I am correct and this process is completely wrong and mistaken for the people and for the nation, for the United States of America, and it is dysfunctional, how is that fixed? Is there any process if people believe this procedure itself is actually flawed and mistaken? What can people say about that, and what can you guys do?
First of all, I am not a commissioner. I am not the chairman. I'm a staff member. My job, as I mentioned earlier, is to write the environmental impact statement. If you have concerns along those lines, all of you are citizens of the United States. You have the ability to write your elected representatives, as well as the commissioners, to let them know of your concerns along those lines. Any other questions? Sir, do you have a question?
I have a concern They would like to get an easement to make an approach road to their staging area on the pipeline. We have an organic farm. We have a pond, as I mentioned before, which is our only water supply. There's no public water. We have gone 500 feet drilling a dry well. Several neighbors have, in the same formation, attempted unsuccessfully to reach water. Even just building that access road, we cannot tolerate, for example, they're using herbicides to control the weeds on that access road. That would destroy the nature of our business. If the blasting nearby were to disrupt our water supply, our business is kaput. It's done. What is our recourse? What conditions do you put, you FERC, on the proponent to reimburse for the full cost of the damage they do to our lives, to our livelihood, and to our peace of mind? Are you simply going to let them do what they want on a narrow strip within our land, regardless of whether they damage anything? Do you force them to abide by certain minimal standards? I really want to know.
I can address a couple of your concerns. First, I don't necessarily know, I don't know your property. I don't know whether that's, you're saying it's an access road that they proposed to temporary workspace or a ware yard or something like that. I don't know at this point whether they proposed that to be a permanent or a temporary road. 2 years, so it's a temporary road. I would encourage you to contact me, and we can look at the actual. I can actually find it on the map. We can look at it and determine whether we are an ongoing review of all of their roads, all of their access roads, both permanent and temporary, as well as places like ware yards, extra workspace, those sort of things. We can determine whether in the environmental document, whether it's going to be determined that those are actually needed or not. Now, when it comes to herbicides or issues about property compensation, those tend to be private negotiations between the landowner and the company. Now, on the herbicide issue, if you provide that as a comment and let me know what you have, that you know that is or you have an organic farm, that's something we would take an account, and we could potentially, and I can't guarantee anything at this point because we're still in the process of developing that document, we can make sure that the company would not spray those for that temporary road on your land. Now, the issue of the water, again, any damage that the pipeline does to any other resources in the area, like water, we require them in general to put things back the way it was for temporary impacts. Any damage to water sources, springs, wells, those sort of things, they're required to fix those if they're damaged. That's something we would require and do require routinely in all of our projects. Are there any other questions? Because if not, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. Again, I know we ran a little later than I think expected, but I do want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Again, I want to reiterate that I appreciate your comments. I know many people are very concerned about this pipeline, and I personally will do my best to ensure that the environmental impact statement minimizes the impacts to the best practicable. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact me at FERC and I can answer any of your questions. Thank you again and have a good night.
Minimize the impacts. We don't want the pipeline.